Hello and welcome to the second part of the 3-video Information Literacy for HS510. I'm Jamie Donnelly, your Social Sciences Librarian at Georgian Court. In our first portion, we reviewed the library catalog and obtaining books and video materials that are available through our library. In the second half, we'll be reviewing on what is a scholarly or peer-reviewed journal article and how to properly utilize some of our databases. Now, I understand that you've probably used some of our databases and have done some basic research in your undergrad or graduate courses, but as this is a great refresher, I've created this handy PowerPoint to explain what is and what is not a scholarly or peer-reviewed journal article. First off, what is not a scholarly journal article? Usually the most common thing that comes to mind is our popular magazines or leisure magazines. Those are the magazines that are sold at your grocery stores or Barnes & Noble. They generally are very inexpensive, and you can even get a subscription for under $20 a year. However, they're actually published just for the general public, not people like yourself who are researching or going to become professionals in the specific field. And they are actually written by non-experts. So you necessarily won't see anybody with a higher graduate degree in Homeland Security, as opposed to you'll probably see people that are educated in journalism or marketing, because they are trained to entertain, promote viewpoints, and to sell you products. Okay? And they include usually attractive covers and color photos and lots of advertisements. This is not necessarily to say that they are not helpful for your research, because I do know some students sometimes will read a very intriguing article in, say, Newsweek, and that will spark their interest to go and research and write a paper on it. However, as inspiring as some of them may be, it's great to go ahead and research to see if the information that's provided in these articles in these popular magazines is correct. Now, if you are interested in referencing one of these articles, I always recommend to speak with your professors. Let's go on to trade journals. Trade journals are kind of in between. They're in between popular and scholarly in the sense that they are published for when you become actually a professional in your field. For example, I'm an academic librarian, so I do read some of the trade journals that are specific for academic librarians. The articles in it are my peers. They are other academic librarians around the country or the world that discuss on particular topics that we have been discussing at conferences. Sometimes they may include also studies, but in all sense and purposes, they're there to announce industry news, share best practices, publicize events, job offerings, and they are published again for professionals, specialists, and practitioners. Once again, I wouldn't discourage you from using them, but I would use those types of articles more for inspiration. And again, always check with your professor if it's quality to use in your research. So, what about our handy scholarly or peer-reviewed journal articles? Well, they are published for scholars, researchers, and students like yourself. They are there to report research or studies. They are lengthy. They are not 1 to 2 pages. They are generally between about 6 to 60 pages. They include citations, references, and footnotes. They should include some information about the author's credentials, because the authors that are writing these articles are experts in the field. They are your professors. They are the people that have very advanced degrees and experience. So usually the credentials will be listed as their degrees, perhaps previous publications, or where they currently work, what institution or university. And that lovely term I like to use, the abstracts. It will always include, or should include, a summary and abstract of the article. So let's say you have an article, it's 60 pages long, but the title sounds really great for your research. It looks like something that you are looking for. Instead of going ahead to read the 60 pages to decide if this is okay for your research, I always just recommend read that 1 or 2 paragraphs for the abstract ahead of time to gather up to see if it is valuable to your research. This concludes our scholarly journal PowerPoint, and we're actually going to go on to what is an empirical article. With these videos, I've included several articles to accompany some of the information that we'll be looking at. 2 links were provided to you that describe what an empirical article is from an academic library standpoint. The first page I just love. It's from the University of LV, and it describes what an empirical article is. Specifically, that an empirical research article is an article which reports research based on actual observations or experiments. In basic terms, it's an article that describes an original study. I like how they break it down a little bit more and describe that it's an article that's published in an academic, scholarly, or professional journal. It includes an abstract in which it will mention a study, an observation, an analysis, and particularly a number of participants or subjects. It also has these certain types of sections, such as an introduction, a literature review, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. Please take a moment to review this whole page. Once you are finished, please join me over here for the second empirical article page from Georgia State University. It actually was created by the social work, sociology, and criminal justice librarian and describes once again what an empirical article is. It also discusses quantitative research and qualitative research methods. It's pretty important for you to get familiarized with these types of terms when you're doing your research. So, what is a non-empirical article, or what's sometimes known as a secondary source? Those are articles that are more literature reviewed. So think about when you've written a paper where you have read some articles or books, you've presented a hypothesis or a question, and you've decided to use those articles to try to answer your particular question. That would be considered a non-empirical or a secondary article, because you're not doing original research on a particular subject matter. So we're actually going to go ahead now to the Georgian Court University databases. So please join me at georgian.edu. So we are here at georgian.edu, and we will be reviewing the databases specifically for criminal justice and homeland security. So if you want to join me, hover over Library, go down to Online Resources, and we're going to go into our databases. Now, databases are a collection of articles, magazine, journal, newspaper, also chapters and books, book reviews, conference publications, and other important types of individual publications that have been published. So what happens is that these database companies, they obtain these journals. They purchase their subscriptions, and they will provide it to libraries for a very high fee. Your tuition does pay for these because these are experts in the field. We're going to pay the experts. We don't want to pay someone who is not doesn't have knowledge or experience in your field. So these are the top people in your field, and once you get familiarized with researching, you'll start recognizing some authors' names and specific institutions and universities that specialize in certain areas. So some databases are general, listed over here by title, and then some are specifically by subject. Sorry about that. My computer would like to ask if I like a certain types of scheme. So I said, thank you, but no. Anyway, so we have our by subject over here. So these particular databases will include articles that are specific to those types of subject. So for Homeland Security, we want social sciences. Here is a list of our social sciences resource databases, alphabetically, and then we go down to general databases. For Homeland Security, I would like to point out some very important ones. These are the general ones that you'll be using for your research in this class, as well as some of your other Homeland Security courses. CQ Researcher, Criminal Justice Abstract, Criminal Justice Periodicals Index, LexisNexis Academic Universe, ProQuest Central Psychology, PsycArticles, PsycInfo, Sociological Abstracts, and Social Science Web. Those are the main ones for Homeland Security and Criminal Justice. We're going to do an example, and we're going to go into one of these databases. So we will be going to Criminal Justice Periodicals Index, which is actually one of my favorite ones. Oh, it wants me to enter my username and password, and that's what you will actually get at home. It will ask you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and type mine in and log in. After typing in my Georgian court username and password, I was able to access ProQuest Criminal Justice from home. So it automatically brings us to our advanced search. So I would like to write a paper, and I want to find empirical research on post 9/11 perception of Arab Americans. So once again, my question or statement is, I would like to find empirical research on post 9/11 perceptions of Arab Americans. What kinds of search terms do you think I should use? The ones I came up with are perception, September 11th, or actually 9/11, Arab Americans, or Muslim Americans. So we're actually going to go ahead and type these terms in these boxes together. So the first one is perception. Perception and September 11th. Now, this particular term can be written out in very different ways. We could type it September and then actually write the number 11. But in general purposes, when I've seen this date stated, it's usually stated with the number instead of writing out the actual number. So I'm going to type in September 11th. However, another one is actually 9/11. So I'm actually going to type in 9/11 as we have seen it in the news. So our other terms are Arab Americans or Muslim Americans. So I'm going to type in Arab American. Now, it's pretty important to note that you can make this singular or plural by simply selecting the asterisk. What will happen is that the database will search Arab American or Arab Americans. And we're actually going to do it also for Muslim Americans. So my search is going to actually tell the database that I would like articles on the perception and of September 11th or 9/11. So it's going to find articles that mention either of those terms. They can also include both terms, but in general purposes they usually include one or the other. And then also the article must include the term Arab American or Arab Americans or Muslim American, Muslim Americans. Now I would like obviously this to be a peer-reviewed or scholarly journal article, so I'm selecting peer-reviewed. And let's just go ahead and do a search. Now we can limit our search a little bit more. We can say that we just want an article, or perhaps we want to find articles that were written in French on this particular topic. But for right now, let's be a little bit general for our example. Let's do our search. Okay, so our search resulted in over 300 results, so 353 results. In scholarly research, that's actually a pretty good number. If it was a little bit too high, say in a few thousands, then I definitely will want to reduce it. If it was too specific, say only 1 or 2 articles came out, then I may want to change and be a little bit more broad in my terms. So let's review off to the right what different types of narrowing results are. So we've already selected that we do want it to be scholarly journals. We can actually even specifically state that, a publication title. There are 24 articles on this subject matter from crime, law, and social change. But I'd like some variety, so I'm not going to select one of those publication types. We can even reduce by subject, which actually the subjects that I have mentioned are pretty broad. But if I wanted to say, go more specific, such as terrorism or on politics, I may select those as well. Again, we can go ahead and you can reduce to certain persons, language, tags. You can play around with this. I always encourage my students. However, I did take note that I am interested in scholarly peer-reviewed articles on this topic since 2000. Okay? Because obviously 9/11 occurred after actually 2000, 2001, but let's just be broad. Let's be basic and just say 2000. So I've selected 2000 to 2013. So let's update our results. And when I did that, it actually reduced it to 328 results. So let's take a look at some examples here to investigate if they're empirical or not. I'm just looking for my example. I had a really good one, and so I'm actually going to go and just search and make sure that it's available. This is actually a great example that you may do your research today and then come back tomorrow and these articles may change because either the journals, we lost our subscription to them, the databases have removed them, and or they've been updated. So there may be more current information. So I actually went ahead and reviewed the first 2 pages of these articles that have came up on my particular topic, and I noticed it's not actually discussing the perceptions of Arab Americans or Muslim Americans in the United States after 9/11. It's more talking about different policies, books, terrorism, etc. So to make that a little bit more specific, what I want to tell the database is you need to mention not just the word Muslim or American. I would like you to state a Muslim American. So how we do that? We put them in quotes. So I'm going to put these specific 2 words together in quotes. And this will tell the database again that I would like for you, when you are searching these terms, they need to be together. You cannot just put in, when the database is searching it, it can't just come up with Arab without American. And because it's a group of people, let's just put our S to make it plural. Let's see what our results come up now. Let's research again. 27 results. See how reduced it was? So previously, those articles that were not satisfying the need of my research were only including the term Muslim or Arab or just Americans. But when I put those 2 terms together in the quotations, it will actually find a little bit more specific information. So, for example, number 5, defining racial profiling in a post-September world. Let's take a look at this. So you want to select the title of the article. So here is our research article, Defining Racial Profiling in a Post-September 11th World. Here are the authors. This is actually the journal or the source, so American Criminal Law Review. And then this is the date of the publication, so summer of 2003. as well as the paginations. Here is that lovely summary or abstract. So I would take a moment to read this and evaluate if this would be feasible for my research. And I have, and I've decided that yes, this is feasible for my information. So what's great about this is that the full text of the article is provided here. Now, full text specifically means it's actually the whole article. It's the full text of the article, as opposed to just a basic, perhaps a page or two example. And that's obviously what you would like. You would like the full text. But we actually have a PDF or an actual scan of the article that as it's seen in the journal. So I want to view it. Let's open it up together. It's taking a moment, so I'm actually going to pause until it loads. Okay, so my article, Defining Racial Profiling in a Post-September 11th World, the PDF loaded, and here it is. As I said before, it's not going to be 1 to 2 pages, it's 39 pages. We're going to review this article for elements of a scholarly article. We're going to look at it and dissect it and decide if this is scholarly, but also, if it is it empirical? So there are some points to an article that I always like to tell my researching students. There's 4 or 5 major components. First off, what is the publication or journal, the source that this article was published in? It's provided here for you, the American Criminal Law Review. And I know for a fact that that's actually a scholarly journal. So then you will also take a look at the title, Defining Racial Profiling in a Post-September World. Another aspect, or number 3 I would say, would be the author or authors. They're listed here, and then they actually have asterisks after their names that will indicate to me, usually on the bottom of the first page, some background information to tell me if they are experts in the field. And actually we do find out that they are a professor at Northeastern University School of Law. One has a JD from Northeastern University School of Law, and the other one comes from University of California, Berkeley. So these sound pretty promising for a scholarly type of authors. Then you have to look at the abstract. Now, this is a very interesting example because while the citation, an abstract that we had, so kind of the record of the article, did provide you some background about it, the actual article, when we go in, doesn't have specifically stated in an abstract. What do you do on this sense? Well, just like you would do with any papers or articles, you would read the first paragraph or two to get an idea. And when we read through this, I'm taking a look to see what's mentioned, and it's describing, obviously, the September 11th terrorist attacks that occurred in the United States. And then it's discussing about, specifically, Arab Americans. It's interesting to note that when we did our search for Arab Americans, I didn't actually include that little slash that goes between the two words. That's something very important that you need to think about as well when you're doing your research. If, let's say, we were putting Arab Americans in our search boxes and not getting any results, you always have to think, how would another author properly provide that? Okay? So while I was reading this article, I would discover that the first sentence of a few paragraphs in actually states what the purpose of this article is. The purpose of this article is to argue that racial or religious profiling is neither necessary nor effective in the war of terrorism. It goes on to describe that there are some long-term investigation activities and discussing racial and religious profiling. So you want to keep that in mind if this is empirical or not, as well as just a key to if it's going to answer your research question. So as we're scrolling down through this article, we'll obviously notice that there are no pictures of advertisements for, say, shoes or job postings. This is pure text. This is the research of these three authors. Finally, what's the other component I've mentioned? It will actually be the citations. So these articles will look a lot like your papers. Obviously your name, a title of your article, an abstract, and then your references. This one actually includes footnotes as opposed to a citation. So you want to take a look when you're looking at one of these articles that if they don't have an actual citation or references at the end of the article, which is usually what occurs, that you take a look at the endnotes or the footnotes. And this one includes that. So why are these footnotes important? Well, there's actually two major reasons. One, it's backing up these authors' research. It's showing where they're getting their research information from. As well as, number two, it's actually quite important for you as well. Let's say this is the only article on your particular topic and you're getting a little panicky about it and you want to make sure, did I pick a good topic? Is there some really good research on it? We'll take a look at the references that are provided in the only one or two, say, articles or books that you have been able to find. There in the references will lie some other corresponding information. So, see, I always tell my students that you're never really truly stuck because there's always information out there. So, when investigating and looking at this article, if you brought it up yourself and you're looking at it as we scroll through, is this empirical or isn't? The answer is it is not. It's more considered a non-empirical or a secondary type of article. That is because these authors have looked at other people's studies and have made an answer or an assumption to their hypothesis. Again, this would be very, very good for your research. I would use this for your literature review. However, it is not an original study. What is? Let's go back. We're going to go back to our results and review some of our other articles that have presented to us in searching for our topic. When I press return to results, it brought me back to number 5, which is the article we just viewed. So scrolling down, I noticed that number 6, police officer attitudes towards Muslim and Islam, worlds apart. That kind of sounds interesting to my particular topic. Let's take a look at it. This one comes up for us, and we're going to look at it to evaluate, is it scholarly as well as is it empirical? So once again, it's not 1 to 2 pages, it's actually 13 pages. It was published in the American Journal of Criminal Justice. Here is the title of the article. Here are the authors, Ms. Keeley and Mr. Hughes, and I'm kind of interested to see, are they noted as good authors? Are they experts in the field? Let's scroll down. On the bottom of the first page, it actually indicates where they are located at. So they both actually work for the University of Louisville in Kentucky. So they sound like they have research backgrounds as well as perhaps experts in the field. And here is our abstract. And it discusses American Muslims, how many are in the United States, and some of the issues that are going to be discussed in this article. Further along on our abstract, it actually discusses that they're assessing the knowledge of attitudes towards Muslim and Islam among a sample of American police officers. When they provided a survey, they decided 4 general areas. They examined the respondents' general understandings, etc. So you could take a look and read this abstract. we're going to go down a little bit more and view this. So take a moment to investigate and take a look at this article. So when I scroll down to page number 5, it mentions methods. Now, I'm going to tell you that, while I was reading this article, I was starting to question, are they specifically doing a study or not? And actually, under methods, it does. It does describe their Midwestern University and describes the survey and how many people, respondents, have been provided. Okay? And it actually includes also a table that informs you of gender, nationality, etc. So, we have some background in regards to the study that is presented here, and we're actually going to go all the way down to the last few pages to evaluate their literature review or references or citations. And there they are. On page 11, their references are provided here. So, it's safe to say that when we're looking, it comes from a scholarly journal, has a title, has quality authors, an abstract, as well as references. It's definitely an A or a thumbs up to a scholarly journal article. But is it empirical? What do you think? The answer is yes, it is. They did an original study where they informed us through tables how many participants and the specific questions that they asked them. So this is a good example of an empirical article on a specific subject. So, with this article, that actually concludes our second portion of our 3-part videos. Next up, we're going to conclude with some of our databases, and then we're going to go ahead with researching on the internet.